Welcome to the Masters of the Nerdiverse podcast, where we always have such sights to show you. I'm, of course, your host, Mike G, and back on the channel, as always, is our current bio exorcist, Tootie Odin. What's going on, Toots?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. I just got my copy of the Book of the Recently Deceased. I don't know what that means. It just showed up in an Amazon package. I think there's something
Either
you need
you're
to tell
next
me.
or it's too late.
Wow, that's the story of my life. Uh, you're next. Uh, he, we're going so grimdark because of the subject matter of our podcast today, of our movie review. And today we're going to be reviewing the the sequel boot of a 80s classic, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and just ask Tootie, as we pull up our beautiful slides here. The slides the slides are 98% of the podcast, honestly. It's just when
And
we
they're
add.
very well done.
It takes me 17 days to make these, in 17 hours. And on the 17th hour, I check with Tootie to make sure they're fine. And she gives me the thumbs up. And I'm like, we're good. We're
It
good.
took them like 45 minutes yesterday. Relax.
17 days. I had a big beard by the time I was done. It was crazy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then she's just like, okay. So let's
I
talk about.
said get in.
I said, get in. I created my own spruce moose. Did I ass?
The spruce goose.
I thought he called it the spruce moose. Is this a fact check from over 20 years? Live?
Yeah.
I love it. That's
Nothing to do with
awesome.
this podcast.
Abs everything to do with this podcast. Because I like the podcast, like that episode. My initial thoughts was this is going to be a cup of urine. When I first heard about this movie, so I'll go first, I guess, since I just put my foot in it. I had very low expectations about this movie, very very low, because I was scared. I didn't want to watch it because I was scared to death that they would ruin Beetlejuice. It's like one of my childhood favorite movies. This is a monster kid kind of gateway film that when you're a little kid and your parents are trying to get you into scary movies, I think Beetlejuice is on a lot of people's lists because it's not too aggressive. There are some scares, but it's a lot of laughs. So my initial thoughts for this film, I was not happy. I was just like, oh man, I got to do it. It's like a Band-Aid. You got to go see it. I got to see what they did to it. So that's kind of where I'm standing with my initial thoughts. And just knowing the background, we'll talk about that of this movie, of how getting it off the ground. And Michael Keaton has been really active in reviving his old roles, which he said he'll never do. Like he said he never do Batman, but then there he was doing a cameo in The Flash. And here he is doing Beetlejuice, a movie that he had, I guess, been kind of tinkering with Tim Burton about this whole time, but I guess it's now into fruition. Toots, what was your initial thoughts going into this film?
Man, I was right there with you. I had very low expectations of the film itself. Um, it wasn't even until about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes into the film that I still was like, why am I here right now? Um, and anyway, I know we'll get there, but yeah, very low expectations. Kind of white knuckled it before we even went in, just because like I don't want to be disappointed. I didn't want to be disappointed. Um, uh, and I tried my best to separate it. I know the first Beetlejuice like the back of my hand. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Also one of my favorite cartoons of all time. Both go
Yeah.
hand in hand. Those were absolutely amazingly connected, and that was awesome. What an awesome childhood we had. Um, so I tried my best to go into it separating it from that, because understanding that, well, the timeline's different. There's a child involved. Delia's a grandma, like et cetera, et cetera. So um, it's a completely different film. So I'm so happy that the only expectation that I went into it with was that idea that it's a completely different film. Thankfully so, because yeah, low expectations. Like I said, I just was so fearful of being disappointed by it and being um butthurt that it would leave a sour taste after such a brilliant job the first time around. So
Yeah, one thing I've learned is when you see these movies, these super long gone sequels, and I have my own thoughts on sequels, period. But you kind of have to know and put in your heart that whatever this is not going to affect how you felt about the original film. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care for Jurassic Park Dominion or whatever eighth sequel they've made. It doesn't tarnish the feeling I had when I saw Jurassic Park for the first time. You know what I mean? Or when I saw Beetlejuice as a kid and watched it over and over and over again. It's just one of those movies that were on constant rotation. So I try not to let new things tarnish my feelings for my past nostalgia. And one thing this film loves to prey on is nostalgia. And I say prey as like a predator. You know what I mean? It's like it's targeting our nostalgia. And I think that's where a lot of this impossible sequel came from. It's that this film took forever to make. Apparently, they've been trying to remake this. They've been trying to make a sequel since Beetlejuice One came out, and it just either timing or some people retired. Tim Burton was doing his own thing. There were scripts being passed around. One script was like Beetlejuice in Hawaii, I think is what it was called. One of the scripts that was passed around. This movie just was never going to be made, and I think that Tim Burton and Michael Keaton sat down one day and said, "Let's really lock it down, and let's try to make something that we can bring into the 21st century." We're still in the 21st century, right? It's not the 22nd yet.
Yes.
Okay,
No,
I'm
not
sure.
yet.
I
Around
traveled
the
through
corner.
time. I traveled through time a lot, so I lose my bearings. What did you know about the sequel? Like, just did you going in? Like, did you know anything about his strange history or anything kind of
Yeah, they did
pertaining
a
to that?
they did a they did a concept trailer like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was floating around YouTube. Just like, oh shit, that'd be kind of a cool idea. Finally, they're gonna do it because we've been waiting for the sequel for for years since the first one. Um, just because I mean the story had closure, but it didn't really, did it? Like, oh, they lived happy ever after, but there's still this idea that Beetlejuice is still lurking around. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He's not dead. So the thing is, what made the cartoon so successful is that we loved the movie so much we missed it. So there was something about the fun of the movie that once the cartoon came around, I was like, oh shoot, it's back. He's back. She's back. And the dynamic never changed. That's what made the cartoon so good, is that it was basically the sequel to Beetlejuice the first, um, in its own right,
very
which is
good
awesome.
point. Very
But
good point.
when when it comes to this one, um, like when the actual trailer came out, I was not in, but I it was interesting. You know what I mean? To say the least, like the very first few trailers that came out, like the sneak peeks and the little teaser trailers, were brilliantly done because it was intriguing. Like, oh shoot, like this could be okay. This could be good. Um, and then to understand like why the sequel took so long. Well, I think Michael Keaton did Batman almost immediately after
Yeah,
doing
right on
Beetlejuice.
the hills. Yeah, he was right on
Um,
the hills.
I think he was in his peak. So there were several movies that he was doing at the time.
Yeah, like
That he wasn't going to take the time to make a sequel, which I guess, especially more in the 80s and 90s, that's a smart move.
yeah,
Sequels weren't
Batman.
really a thing back then.
Hmm.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, like
Not every
Batman
movie
really
had a sequel like they do now.
right, and the sequels were true sequels back then. You know what I mean? I was thinking about the difference between Batman and Batman Returns. You know what I mean? Where the one thing I hate about sequels today is that they're almost like resellings of the. It's not a continuation of the story. It's more like a reselling of the product. You know what I mean? Where it's like all the things that make this one great, we're gonna shoehorn into this. You know what I mean? And it made me think about Alien Romulus. Whereas my biggest gripe with that movie was it felt like a reselling of the product versus a true linear growth of the story. Where
Right.
it's like, remember this part? Yeah, it's here. Remember this song and dance?
Right.
Oh, it's here. And it's like, yes, it's hard. I can tell that there was some strife of Tim Burton trying to grow the franchise and corporate being like, this has to make money. So let's make sure that we hit all the right notes. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. In the movies that we have reviewed already, there's a vast difference between, like you said, what Alien Romulus has done as far as like they're poking at nostalgia and what Deadpool has done. Like we mentioned, it was done in a more respectful way where it wasn't just shoved into your face. It was done. It's like we're going to honor these people because you guys are huge fans of them, as opposed to
Yeah.
what they did in Alien Romulus, where it's just a repeat of lines, a repeat of scenarios, and um, but what makes it unique here in Beetlejuice without going into spoilers right away is they didn't do it that way. There was absolute nostalgia, but I don't think it was done in a way where it's disrespectful. It's like here, huh, slap, 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 slap. There was aspects of it and there was ideas of it, but I think what they were trying to do was pull into our cravings of what we wanted to see, and then added Hollywood to it.
Yeah,
You know what I
and
mean?
I want to fight you on that a little bit, but I can't because you're right. And I think of the three movies that we've all done have all tagged on nostalgia, and it's almost
Yeah.
like best, better, good. You know what I mean? In that order, like Deadpool was the best example of kind of nostalgia baiting, the way they just interwove it into the story. Romulus didn't do it as well, but you can see there's a lot of love there. And then, in my opinion, uh, Beetlejuice. I hate that name. Uh, but then you have, but
I
then
hate
you,
it so much.
then you have to have Beetlejuice, which is that we already know is going to be the next movie, which is
Hmm.
obnoxious. But Beetlejuice to me feels like it's fighting itself. It feels like it wants to do new things and add new layers to the lore and add new layers to Beetlejuice. But it also is like, well, Dad said we have to do Harry Belafonte slow motion at the funeral. You know what I mean? Like
With a choir of children,
with a
yeah.
choir of children, so extra, but it's so Burton, and it just feels like it's playing tug of war, and it makes. And I'm happy I slept on. I had a night's sleep on it because I was mad. I was super mad. I was like, why does it have to be this way? Why can't we just have a movie with growth? Like it's not like Lethal Weapon 2 was doing all the same beats of Lethal Weapon 1. It was just Lethal Weapon 2. It was a whole new situation with the same characters. Because the characters were written, they will go in a direction that's familiar because of their personalities, but the story is completely different. In this one, it hits the same beats. There's a discovery of the afterlife. There is the in our new character Astrid, which we'll go into, which is a good segue to our new blood, to the new people, the new aspects of the lore. And that's one thing I really enjoyed about this film is the new additions. I normally don't, but the new additions to this film, I liked Astrid. I liked the strange William Defoe cop who was always getting a cup of coffee. That sight gag jacked me up and I would it's every single
It was
time.
pretty brilliant. It was so funny. Yeah.
Like even in the craziest situations, she was ready with a hot cup of coffee for. That killed me. It was so dumb. I even liked the
Yeah,
jerk
it's so funny.
ex-husband because he was a reflection of Catherine O'Hara's character in the first movie in a weird way.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on the new blood? Did you really enjoy the adages of Beetlejuice?
I did. I'm not a huge fan of the Jenna Ortega because they threw her in our face a lot, like in the last 2 years, and no thanks. But there's a lot I don't know about her because I'm sure she's a good actress. I'm sure she rocked it in Wednesday. I watched some episodes, and I did enjoy it. Um, her virality is a turnoff to me, but she did well in the movie because it wasn't about her. As much as it was about her, it wasn't, which I
Yeah,
like. They balanced that really well. We're not throwing this new girl in your face, but we're gonna put her in the movie. Like I don't think they put her in the movie for her name. Let's put it that way. I don't think they put her in the movie for her virality. I think they put her in because that was a good fit for all
yeah,
three of them. She worked well with all three of them. By that I mean Delia. Well, the characters on your graphic there.
yeah.
Like her attitude towards all three of them was as much as it was the same. It was very different. She treated
Mhm.
Delia differently than she treated her mom. She treated her mom differently than she treated Justin Thoreau's character Rory. I think his name is Rory.
Rory.
Um, but again, all the same. Where she just, I don't have time for you people right now.
Very
Typical teenager, but at the same time, there's layers, which is pretty cool
and very modern. And that's one thing
for
about
sure.
this film that I hate it. This is the negative Mike podcast. I hate it. I hate that. Sometimes you got to be negative, and it's not negative. It's just my critique. Um, it's just that I don't like the modernization of the film because one thing I like about Tim Burton films is that they all feel timeless. Even Beetlejuice, the first one, it's set in modern day, but everything about it is so like without certain sense of place. You know what I mean? It's off on a grassy hill in a quiet town, and everything is super. Like it could have been set in the 50s, it could have been set in the 70s. You know, you just don't know. But here, everything about her character was very modern teen. Like there was like, let's make sure that this demographic is being catered to. But that being said, like you said, she fits in the universe quite well with a modern sensibility. Um, and even the return of characters that we know, such as Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara. This is how a teen would act. I was, in that particular situation, especially with her mother being, I would say, uh, separated from her daughter in a sense, and that's one of the major stories of the film. And to go back to your point, I always feel like there is no main character in a Beetlejuice movie. You know what I mean? The main characters jump. You know what I mean? So it's all about the world building because you would say the Maitlands were the main character in the first film, but then no, because Lydia was kind of the main
Lydia
character
was main, yeah,
in the
but then she
first film,
wasn't
but then she wasn't.
because there's the whole thing with what's his face and Delia. And I'm disappointed. I think I know he passed away, but it would have been so cool if what was her name? What was his name in the movie? The Orson
Um,
Welles fella, the
Ortho,
Ortho. Yeah,
yeah,
oh man, that would have been so cool. But
yeah. Because
I wish
remember,
they
you
had
back
an Ortho-esque type. I guess Justin Thoreau was supposed to be that, right?
Justin
Just a
Thoreau
little bit more
reminded me.
narcissistic
He reminded me of
and dumb.
like remember remember uh uh Adam's Family Values, where Uncle Fester got that new wife and she was trying to kill everybody, and she was just so like money, 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 and but did it well? You end up liking the character in a weird way. He reminds me of
Yeah,
that that person where,
yeah, for sure.
you know what I mean. He was trying to relate to Astrid. You know what I mean. He just was so awkward in every single thing he did, and that
Hmm.
that added to his
Hmm.
charm, which is why I liked him as a character. He's a character that you're not
Big time.
supposed to like, but when the times where I was like cringy and when he was being very uh like gaslighty, it's like I get it, and that's not makes me not comfortable, but it's not supposed to. So he's doing his job, you know. And I got to say, before I move on to our next slide, Catherine O'Hara stole this movie to me. She absolutely bodied this role. You know what I mean? And I was just like, oh, she's just taking this movie. She's not leaving her crumb for none of these fools. You know what I mean? And it's like makes me miss these character actors because you don't see them all the time. And to see her being that manic mother and to carry that into being a
Hmm.
manic grandmother, it's just it hits too close to home with certain people I know. I know this woman, you know, and it's just she kills this role. She's my favorite part of the movie.
Uh, yeah, she's not particularly my favorite part, but she's way up there. Um, I loved that she was still Delia, but she added a hell of a lot of her character from Schitt's Creek, a hell of a
Hmm.
lot. Like there was absolute influence there. And then you think about it, they kind of are one and the same. They kind of are, except I can't remember her name, but her character in Schitt's Creek is more nonchalant and careless. I mean, she just doesn't give a shit about anything but herself. And Delia is very much the same, but she's a little bit more like she's a cougar. Like she's aggressive. Like she's a little bit more like um outspoken about her meanness because she's an art. Remember, she's an artist. Like she
She's an
did
artist.
sculptures and she did all that. And thankfully, that never changed. In fact, it modernized to where she's doing weird shit like spray painting herself onto walls and like just the modern art that you would see today. Is what she was doing, which is like, oh hell yeah, that's so Delia. Like yes, like that's so Delia. It's really cool. Um, I yeah, okay. Well,
Well, we
one
can
thing I
go
want to
ahead.
talk, I want to mention is yes, yeah, let's go there because I'm ready. Well, one thing
Okay.
I do want to mention, since we're doing that, is at the very end, when okay, she gets bit by a spider, and the only thing she can do while she's in this place of death is say, "But look what happened to me," and everybody else around is like mutilated, and it's just the funniest thing to me. Like it's so perfect. She was just so perfect.
I wanted spoilers. The mom
Yeah,
dies
I'm
at the
sorry.
end. Spoilers. The mom dies in this
I didn't
movie.
say that though. I just said she got bit and that she went to the underworld. You don't necessarily have to die to go there.
No,
So
you
I
know
didn't
what?
say it. I
You know
didn't
what?
spoil it.
I spoiled that. You know what I mean? That's totally fine. So if you would
Our
not
bad.
like that, that's totally fine. You would not like additional spoilers. This is the stop
I'll
sign.
timestamp the spoiler before. I'll
Okay,
timestamp the spoiler before, though. I promise.
that's hilarious. I think that's going to be. I think that might be our clip for this episode. That was funny. That's tight. Yeah. So spoilers. Here we go. So the plot, right? Um, which is so. Can I talk about for a second that we don't for our childhood directors when they age and they get older and their sensibilities change, isn't it still nice to see them when they do stuff because they don't do things a lot? Like watching this and seeing the Burtonisms about it, kind of like the way the camera shot, the Danny Elfman score, you know what I mean, the costume design, it's just it's so Tim Burton. And it makes me think of like Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he's doing Doctor Strange. Oh, I'm in. I don't care what the movie's about. I want to see Sam Raimi get crazy. You know what I mean? What can he do with that? And it feels good to see Tim Burton, Steven Spielberg. You know what I mean? I want George Lucas to jump behind the camera again and do something. It got to be Star Wars. Just let him do something. You know what I mean? Like to see our childhood directors stretch their legs in 2024 and to see him try to bring his strange macabre sense to a modern universe, which is this is. And very quick plot is that Lydia has been a scare tactics TV host, and it's been, I guess, been very lucrative in doing so. And she's starting to be haunted again by Beetlejuice himself, which we haven't really talked about a lot in this review so far, which is telling and good because Beetlejuice is always best in small doses. So her and her family have to go back to their home to settle things and to clear out the house because of the untimely death of the father of Lydia's father in
Charles Dietz.
Charles Dietz. And that's the crux of the story, honestly. His death is the crux of the story. And
He's the
it's
main character.
wow, you're not
He's the main
wrong.
character.
You're not wrong. And we have a whole section about that in my thoughts about that. But what do you think of the plot? Do
Definitely.
you that's gonna be crazy? Tootie, what do you think?
Um,
Do you think this plot worked for a sequel?
I do. I do think it worked. I mean, I'm so fucking shocked that they chose to go the route that they did, where I mean, they expressively Tim Burton expressly put an elephant in the room that didn't really need to be there, which I thought he did brilliantly.
It's so
And again, it's so forced, and it was the entire plot. Um, I think it worked well. So somebody dies, so they want to move forward. They can't do it because the family's in shambles. Because Lydia's busy with her ghosts, Astrid's busy with her attitude, Delia's busy with her art. And the whole family's in their own way in disarray. But at the same time, when it's time to come together, they come together. When they find out that Charles Dietz has died on a trip, traveling looking for birds, as he's a bird watcher, if you remember
That's
from the
he's a
first
bird
one.
watcher. Mm-hmm.
So they go. This is when they end up going back to the house. And they have the funeral there at the house. Shenanigans sort of ensue because throughout this entire time, Lydia is seeing flashbacks of Beetlejuice while she's at work, while she's walking nonchalantly, anyway. So for the first 20 to 25 minutes, she's seeing flashbacks of Beetlejuice, and she's not really understanding why. They get to the house, they get to the property. They have the funeral, and at the reception of the funeral, it's so one of my favorite scenes ever is seeing the house draped and the
That's a
black
beautiful
veil.
shot. Yeah.
So cool. It's
Yeah.
so freaking cool.
I've never
I
seen nothing
loved
like it
it.
in my life.
Um,
That Tim Burton.
never. It's so beautiful. It's so Tim Burton. It's so
The
beautiful.
house is in
Um,
mourning. It's
the
beautiful.
house is in mourning. Well, that's exactly what Delia says. Is yeah, the
Yeah.
house is in mourning. Um, so they make arrangements to move out. For some reason, Rory randomly gets engaged to Lydia at the funeral reception. Total cringeworthy, but it's a pretty cool scene because of how cringy it is. It's so hilarious. Um, so after that, they start making arrangements to actually get things out of the house so that they could just move forward with their lives and the house is done, etc., etc. Things happen where Astrid ends up meeting this boy. This boy ends up be himself, as we said, we're going into spoilers. This boy ends up turns out he's a ghost.
Yeah.
And one thing leads to another. They end up in the underground. Lydia has to now find herself, calling on Beetlejuice to be saved, to help her save her daughter Astrid. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. Save her daughter Astrid from the afterlife because the dreamboat boy ghost was technically almost like a Beetlejuice level demon in a weird way. He was trying to trade his death for her life, and he had to trick her in a certain way. And my crazy, or did her knocking upside her head allow her to see ghost? Because she hit her head pretty hard. Because what happened was there was the whole reception. There was the whole funeral / wedding proposal. She's riding her bike, and modern music is playing. I hate that. Why did it have to put modern music in it? Just let Danny Elfman go crazy. We didn't need all that like top 40 shit. Sorry.
We didn't. No.
I hated that part. There's no need for it. That's what I'm talking about when I say corporate interference. You got to put the music they like. You got to put the tunes. It's like, no, just let Danny Elfman go nuts. And anyway, so she knocks her head super hard on a tree, and then she sees the boy ghost. She couldn't see ghosts before, right? And we never got a reason why Lydia saw ghosts. She just could see them, and maybe that was kind of the trigger. Her mutant gene popped open, and now she could see the boy. And Lydia has to make a promise, pretty much promise to get married again to Beetlejuice, so he can actually do his Beetlejuice powers and get them into purgatory. Because this movie shows us there's a heaven and there's a hell. You know what I mean? And whatever they go to in the first movie and whatever they go to in this movie is kind of like purgatory, or like a way station where
the wait, purgatory, like you said.
Yeah, so where people work and they do all the logistics of heaven and hell. You know what I mean? And we have our dance scenes, we have our wedding scene, which is also in the first movie, and you know what I mean. And we have the exorcism of Beetlejuice again, which is at the absolute tail end, but he's still fine. It's Beetlejuice. One thing about this plot, it's that it's really a love letter to the father. You know what I mean? They treat him so gently in this movie, Richard.
Are you sure about that?
They treat him gently.
Oh, the father. Oh,
the father.
Astrid's father. Yeah. You're right.
No,
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Charles Deeds.
No, Charles. That's what I'm saying. No, Charles. They treat him gently, dude. Charles. Okay. Charles gets a full claymation cinematic explanation of his death. Right. Only time outside of the sandworm it happens. Anything not to show this man's face. He also gets a see-through clear shark-shaped tombstone, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He gets lines in a fake version of the actor's voice, and he gets his own little storyline that he goes through. You know what I mean? Around the periphery of the film.
Yeah.
It feels like you said, he's the protagonist of the movie. Why everybody's just kind of reactively dealing with Beetlejuice, reactively dealing with the boy and all that stuff. It makes it hard to me, it makes the plot a little hard to follow, because it's like, who am I rooting for? You know what I mean? It's like, and it's really a story about redemption and forgiveness too. Like you mentioned, the mom, shrouding the house. in her showing her ways of grieving through expression. There was this one scene where Catherine O'Hara's character is screaming into a camera. And like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just going through my grief. I'm just recording my grief for art installation. I would say you should do it too. You know what I mean? So like them going through their stages of grief and Beetlejuice just kind of being on the periphery. Oh, we haven't even mentioned his corpse bride.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, the corpse bride. Um, who's played
That's the
by
thing, is that there's 4 or 5 different things happening in this movie at one time.
that's what I'm saying.
There
It's
there
hard to
isn't there isn't but that's the thing. The first one was almost the same in that, like we were saying, Delia and Ortho had their thing, Delia and Charles had their thing, Barbara and Adam had their thing, Beetlejuice and Lydia had their thing.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's too much different than what was going on in the first one. The first one was just as chaotic. This one didn't bring the chaos back together like the first one did.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, because
Right.
that's a whole nother storyline that Beetlejuice's ex-wife, a throwaway gag from the first movie. Where'd you get that ring from? Oh, it's from my ex-wife, and her finger was detached. They created that into a whole nother character that was stalking Beetlejuice, and we never really got her true intentions. It's like, yeah, did she want to kill him? Did she want to eat his soul? Did she want to remarry him? There was all those circumstances were thrown out, but she never said herself, like, why am I hunting you? And even when she was about to, she was interrupted by them getting her up out of there. You know what I mean? So that's another interesting character that I think could have used a bit more like time in the oven, especially like this film going into plot goes into the origin of Beetlejuice, which is crazy to me. Like Beetlejuice was a grave robber during the Spanish Inquisition or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's why he speaks Spanish. And there's a whole scene in this movie that just goes to telenovela.
Yeah.
And I looked at you like, what is happening? But
yeah, same. When Tim Burton started doing that, I was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna buckle up and I'm in.
Yep,
I'm just in. Let's see
I'm
what
along for the
happens.
ride.
Yeah,
Yep,
because
along for the
the
ride.
movie was exactly that. It started with a claymation scene. It went like that was like a good 5 minutes long, explaining what happened to Charles, which was like it just came out of nowhere. Then like you said, it went into Beetlejuice explaining his life story, but he was doing it in Spanish in a telenovela montage type thing, which was amazing. He spoke Spanish, I think,
Very
twice
Mario.
throughout the movie.
Yeah, very Mario Bava.
Mario Bava. That's
It looked
right.
like Black Sunday. The whole scene was in black and white. I think
Yeah.
it was very
Yeah. It
Mario
was. Yeah.
Bava. And what's funny is he spoke Spanish twice in the first movie. Remember, he was like, "Hey, we're simpatico here." You know what I mean? He said, "Hey, we're hermanos." You know what I mean? Where he
Oh,
dressed
that okay. All right.
and so, but him being
Like
legit,
Adam. Yeah.
like a Spanish grave robber. I was like, because everyone had their head canon for what was Beetlejuice when he was alive. Outside of the jokes that people said Pete Davidson looked like Beetlejuice when he was alive. It's stupid.
Kind of
But
does.
getting
Kind of spot on.
yeah, kind of teenage Beetlejuice. We get a whole backstory that he married a witch and he didn't know that she was going to use him for her nefarious deeds, and they kind of destroyed each other, and that's how she got locked away. And nice little cameo by Danny DeVito. I thought he was going to have a bigger role because it's Danny DeVito, but I guess when Tim Burton calls, sure, I'll do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing nothing. Danny was there for a split second. One thing I hated, I loved it because it's Danny. He's looking gross and he has the Jim Carrey cable guy eye contacts in. You know what I mean? And one thing I hated, and I felt like it was so out of touch. And I told you the second we saw this was I hated the Soul Train. I hated everything. It seemed so out of touch and so weird in like only for 10% of the audience. And it's like,
Can I tell you? I think it was I think it was a diversity move for whatever reason. It didn't need to happen, but it was there.
It seemed like
the only thing I liked about it was at the end when I like the use of it when Delia was ready to go onto it and go into the great beyond, because that's where she reunites with Charles, and they, it just ends with them kind of getting on the train together. It's the only reason why I like the Soul Train is because at least it was used for something as opposed to just why are you here,
Yeah, and
But I
almost
agree.
the only saving grace of the Soul Train is that I like the idea that when you're passing on, it's a joyous occasion. Hey, we're having
For
fun.
sure,
We're all
yeah,
dancing. This is good. We're having a good time.
yeah,
But people having afros and bell bottom jeans and it being this weird kind of like, is this the segregation train? Like, is this the soul train for these people? There's a
that's
whole
what I'm
other
saying.
train for these other people. There's a bit more, a bit more buttoned up. It, I didn't know what to take away from that outside of, like you said, the second time we see it, and she kind of comes to terms and reunites with her husband, which is a happy ending for him. And it's like, why
For
is this
sure.
character why is the character so prominent? Okay, my biggest gripe of the entire movie is that the Maitlands were technically almost the main character of Beetlejuice 1. They're through the entire movie. We were there. They were the audience. Okay, we just died. We're learning the ropes. Do we want to trust Beetlejuice? But we can. Gina Davis, Alec Baldwin, you know what I mean? Classic, right? You can't, there's no Beetlejuice without those two. But in
For
this
sure.
film, the father gets an entire arc, but they get two throwaway lines.
Two throwaway lines.
That's crazy to
I have that
me.
in my notes. I have that in my notes too. It's
I
like
did
where,
not like
why,
that at all.
and all she did was say, "Oh, well, they found a way to get to the great beyond. They
Oh,
found
they
a
found a
loophole. A
loophole.
loophole.
Oh, loophole. And
What?
why didn't they use that loophole to get Astrid out? That would have been a cool little callback.
Hello? The same loophole. Like make it make sense. I
And
mean, I
it's
was
like
very disappointed. Like I understand that they weren't going to be in the movie, but I mean,
they could have done
a
voice
better
acting.
explanation.
They could have done like
Pictures, yeah, voiceovers, something. Yeah, I
they
agree.
could have made a young Gina Davis they do that all the time now. Make a young Gina Davis, make a
For
young Alec
sure.
Baldwin, and just have them appear. They're so important to the first
Granted,
film.
Alec Baldwin's been a little busy, but like,
He's a
come
little
on.
busy. That's not funny. That's not funny. He's a little busy, but Gina Davis ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? You could have had the, but you could have had them.
Oh.
Oh, you could have had them, be more of a central part of the story than not at all. When the first one was technically about them, we opened the film with them, we closed the film with them. And just to
Exactly.
say, oh yeah, they found a loophole and they're in the afterlife now. They're
Exactly.
good, and like
And
it's
I gotta tell
nothing.
you, I don't agree with you in that they gave Charles such a gentle send off. I don't see it that way. I see it the exact opposite. But I have to see it from your point of view because I haven't yet. All I see is that they really wanted to, to me, embarrass him, ridicule the hell out of the character. Um, there's no reason for him to have gotten into a plane accident, fall into the ocean, survive that, and then get eaten by a shark just from the top down.
Yeah,
Like
like
literally,
call.
all of this is missing. Just chomp. Like he has no head, he has no neck, he has no nothing, which would explain the fact that they can't use him. Um, I saw it as more of a look,
Like
we know
humiliation.
this guy's not in the film.
Yeah,
That's how I saw it. Like kind of like they were in a sense humiliating this character because he fucked himself over. I don't know, like that again. That's how I saw it. Is like they were just kind of like
I see it completely
Tim
different.
Burton doesn't like Tim Burton doesn't like predators. That's how I saw it. Tim Burton was sending out a message. I don't like predators, so this is what we're going to do with this character. That's how I saw it. Maybe I'm wrong,
No, I
but you're
see.
right in that he was prominently done throughout the entire film. He
Yeah,
was the beginning of the film. He ended the film. So you're
and
right.
that's what I'm
I mean, well,
saying.
I guess yeah.
I totally understand your point of view. Maybe I'm wrong or seeing it weird, but to me, this is why I wanted to have a whole slide called Burton's Message, and I think this was him missing his friend who did something wrong, but he couldn't show his friend, so he kept parading his friend throughout this entire film, giving him his
Are they
grace.
friends?
I don't know their friends. I have no idea. I don't know if they
Oh,
talk or clicked up. It's just weird
I see what you're
that
saying, though. I see what you're saying.
that
Okay.
his character didn't lose any grace. the character. Charles was a sweet bird watching on safari dude who got eaten by a giant shark, which is a funny play on Jaws. And throughout the whole film, he was looking for his wife. That's all he ever wanted to do. He was kind of right 10 steps behind the main characters the whole film. You know what I mean?
And he was only looking for her because he didn't want her to be mad at him.
He didn't want her to be mad at him.
Yeah.
And it's like, it felt like Tim Burton was like, man, I can't have this guy in this movie. It just he's gone. But I want to show respect to his character to the point where I'm going to make him the third leg of this tripod. You know what I mean? It's really his death, Astrid's coming to age of being able to see ghosts, and Beetlejuice's conundrum, which is getting rid of his ex-wife. Those are really the three main pillars of the film. And I think that his message was like, I can't show this guy's face, I can't say his voice, but he's here. You know, his voice, he will be present in this movie no matter what. And we're gonna play, and I think he would get a kick if we played around with him a bit. You know what I mean? No pun intended. We're gonna jack him up, and we're gonna make him a ghost. But he's here. He's not going anywhere. In any other film, it would have been a 2-second line. It would have been one scene. We would have never heard about that character again, right? Like,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, any other film would have been like, oh yeah, the dad, you know, the co-star from the first movie, oh, he passed away. This is kind of like getting everybody back home. Okay, now what's going on at home? And then it would have ran off, and that death just would have been part of. No, his death reverberates through the entire film. You know, it's the crux of their grieving. It's the crux of them returning to the house. It's Beetlejuice's opening. He has no real way to affect Lydia until he finds out their father died, and that was his end. He said, "Now it's my chance." You know what I mean? He's so proactive in this movie, but he has no face, he has no voice, but he's there. He's like a spirit. He's the spirit of the movie, and I'm questioning why.
Yeah, he's the spirit of the movie.
It's so weird.
I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as the exact opposite of, haha, look what we did to you because you fucked up. That's how I saw it. But it's so easy to see it the way you're saying it too, though. It's so because he's in the movie the entire movie. He is practically the main character. He starts it, he ends it. He has his own storyline going on.
His own arc,
which really didn't need to be there.
No, yes, he has voice lines and doesn't have a head. He has voice lines and doesn't have a head. Like, if you're going to tell a joke at someone's expense, you're not going to spend millions of dollars on CG, on practical effects, to constantly reiterate that joke. You get it in and out. Oh yeah, he's gone. You know, ha ha ha. Moving on. You don't like, unless there was some real vitriolic things going on. You don't drag a joke out for a full movie and put money into it. You know what I mean? And put effort in acting and voice act. That's a whole lot of attention and cost to put one person down. I'm really seeing it from the other side. I'm seeing it from like a sign of care and a sign of, because you can't be here, I'm gonna make sure that you're here. You can't be here. They won't let me. They won't let me put you in the movie. I wanted to call you, but I couldn't. So I'm going to figure out a way. We're going to write this and figure out a way to keep you involved the entire film. And there's no reason why. Now, if Lydia died, that'd be one thing. Let's say Lydia was a ghost. It would make perfect sense for her to be a through line for the entire film because she's such an integral character. He was not an integral character to the first film. He was part of the group, but he wasn't the Maitlands, he wasn't Lydia, he wasn't Beetlejuice. So why is he?
The only thing he did was he bought the house.
He bought the house.
That's pretty much it. That's his story.
And he was stressed out.
He bought the house. That was it.
He was stressed out.
Yeah.
But it's like if any of those four died, then it makes perfect sense to keep them interwoven into the story. But him, why is he so prominent in this film? He's got a weird case. Why is he around? It's it's coming from a different place, and I don't know what Burton's true message was in that. and that's why I
Because think
included.
about it, as audience members, every time he's on screen, the only thing we're thinking about is number one, why, I think, and number two, oh, remember what he did?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
you
I
know,
was,
I was too.
as an audience member,
It's hard not
that's
to
what
think
I was
about it.
thinking.
Oh, that's it's like it
Right,
sucks. He's a
exactly.
creep. It's it sucks.
So
He's a creep.
that's
You know.
what makes me think the message was the exact opposite, and that Tim Burton had to have known. I mean, he had to have known, and the production team had to have known that every single time he was going to be on screen, that was going to be controversial for a lot of people. So why put
It's
him in
so
if not to embarrass him?
strange.
Is how I'm seeing it
I
again.
feel it.
But you're
I,
it's
I,
strange either way.
I feel it
It's
either
strange
way.
either way.
It's strange either way because you're still donating time, money, and expenses to either defame a
You're,
man,
millions. You're right,
yeah,
millions.
millions, to either tear someone down and build them up. It's one or the other. There's no gray area because of the amount of time this character is given. I think behind closed doors you're right, and behind closed doors I'm right. One way or another, and we'll never know because of the severity of that situation. You know what I mean? And
What do you
it's trippy.
for Tim Burton? What do you think the overall message is? Because there is also the endearing side of the other father, Richard,
Richard,
who
let's talk about
I don't.
Richard.
I'm not really sure why they even put him in the movie, except for, I mean, I understand that he ended up helping save, but I didn't really get that he had to be there as a dead guy with fish
With
hanging
Piranha
all over
shaking off
him.
his face and stuff. I think
Like,
the
because they try to make these scenes like, oh, loving and
but
endearing and
it's so
family, but
all
it didn't
it's
work for me.
no because it's Tim Burton.
Was that on
No,
purpose?
yeah,
Okay.
it's Tim Burton being weird. We're gonna have this endearing. They're having coffee. She's having a one-on-one with her dad, but you can't really stay focused because there's a fish on his face
Right
doing
here.
right here, and you're just like, what am I? Why? And it's just part of his weird humor, part of his weird macabre sensibility, which makes him Tim Burton. And I think if there was a through line, true message of this film, I think it's really acceptance. You know what I mean? Everybody had to go through some level of grief and acceptance. Lydia had
For
to go through
sure.
the acceptance that she needs to live her life and not live in the past. She's neglected her mom. She's neglected her daughter. She's attached herself to this parasite that she's has a codependent relationship with, and she needs to break up all of that to get back to what's important, which is her life and her family. Astrid needs to get over the death of her father. You know what I mean? She hasn't moved on, and it pisses her off that her mom is being so nonchalant. You know, you know how it is. Your mom's got a new boyfriend, and it's the most awkward thing on earth if you ever live through a separation. You know what I mean? You
Hmm.
got this new guy that you're really not trying to deal with, and she won't accept. And your mom's supposedly a psychic and can see ghosts, but she can't see your dad. Why is that? And they
Hmm.
never really explain it. Even the dad is like, "Yeah, I know you can't see me, but it is what it is." And it's like, why though?
She's not ready. That's my
She's not
thing.
ready.
She's not ready. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
and
hasn't
even
accepted his death.
Beetlejuice has like a through line of like acceptance. It's like, yeah, I'm kind of you know, I'm still trying to get at Lydia, but my ex is around. It's making me
He
feel a
has her
certain way.
picture on his desk.
There's this picture on his desk as a child, which is
Yeah.
weird. Okay, we haven't talked about Beetlejuice at
Oh
all.
yeah, she's only 16 or 17.
It's not an updated
Right?
photo of her. It's of her
No,
back
it's
in the
not. You're
original
right.
film. And then I
Right. Well,
saw
that's the only picture he has of her, though.
that would make sense, but
I mean,
still okay. So back to the message. My original
message.
message of why he's keeping homeboy around. And it's weird. So please go through with me. Beetlejuice is still in love with the Lydia he lost, which was the child, mind you. And Beetlejuice is what, like 700 years old, unrealistic number, right? So he goes back and still tries to marry Lydia because he loves Lydia. You know what I mean? Apparently, but he. I'm trying to find a good through line here of Tim Burton's matches when it comes to because you put the bug in my head with what you just said. You know
Okay,
what I mean?
here's the thing. Here's how I'm seeing it. The
Oh,
way I'm seeing it.
okay, I got it back, but go
Okay,
for it.
go,
Go for
go,
it.
go.
Yeah.
No,
So
no, no, go.
okay. So I was I've been totally media silent about this film because I didn't want to be swayed from my my thoughts on the film. I haven't watched any reviews, But I was watching a 1/6 scale collector, and there's a 1/6 scale Beetlejuice, and someone said, I didn't like Beetlejuice, and this is, mind you, someone who didn't grow up with it. There's like, because they found Beetlejuice cringy and almost kind of like an offender. They felt uncomfortable with OG Beetlejuice. They didn't think it was funny. They didn't think of the joke. I was like, Beetlejuice would not work the way he worked in '87. I just watched the movie. He's constantly trying to enhance upon the Gina Davis character. You know, he falls in love with Lydia, who's a child. It's very strange and awkward, dirty work. And yes, he's a scumbag, but that's Beetlejuice. But it's an extra layer of gross in nowadays sensibilities, which I think they toned down a lot in this film, because he's pretty much like Bugs Bunny in the first film. And people forget Bugs Bunny was also doing wild stuff too, like randomly kissing people, and you know what I mean, just being very strange. You know, that's just the comedy of the time. So
Right.
I think Tim Burton also was like, I can't do it that way anymore, because we're, you know, the world we live in now, and it's just not right to do things that way anymore. So it's like, I have to tone this character down, which I think was also part of the message that we all got to relax a little bit. Even the most outrageous character, Beetlejuice, who seemed like he was doing a job, versus how unhinged he was in the first movie. He was more, and it could just be the age of Michael Keaton. The guy's almost pushing 80, but the character just seemed a bit watered down in this film, but for very good reason. You know what I mean?
I agree. Tone down, because I mean, the thing is, he's not supposed to age anymore. Like he is the age that he is, but he looks more aged. And he, like you said, he is a lot more toned down. He's running a business. He's well, he's running a business the way Beetlejuice would run a business, the same business he's always had, but it seems like it has grown since.
Yeah.
So it's not just him by himself anymore. Back to the Burton message, back to talking about Charles Dietz. I'm still gonna weigh on the side of, I think it was a thing to bring the elephant out of the room and to actually put it on the table and embarrass the hell out of this character. And I say that for one reason, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the movie, Lydia looks at Beetlejuice before they kill him off, and she says, I'm sorry, but 700 blah, blah, blah plus years is just a little bit too old for me.
That's a good line.
And that's how she ends it. And that's how he dies. So to me, I really do expressively think it was a message of, this can't happen, this ain't happening. And just so you know, I don't stand by anybody or anything that does this. Again, the humor of the 80s and the humor of the 60s, 70s has been older man always wants younger. Even today, older men always want younger. 20-year-olds, whatever. If you can get it, get it. It just is what it is. Now, that's not to suggest it's okay to be a predator by any means. I don't think that was the message of the time. The message was, she was the one who was single. She's the young farmer's daughter, and that's all there is to that. That's the humor behind it. Beetlejuice, a scumbag, farmer's daughter. Shenanigans ensue.
Yeah.
Tim Burton didn't do that in this one. I don't see that. I don't see it that way in this film. This film was a lot more sillier, a lot more scarier too. But that being said, than the first one, a hell of a lot more scarier, but a lot more sillier, a lot more antics, a lot more zany. And like I said, I really in my heart truly believe that the message was, not anymore, buddy. The times have changed. Another example would be the fact that the strip club wasn't in this movie at all.
Yeah,
like
the strip club was completely gone.
That was such a prominent piece in the first one. It had a whole bit where the girls were like, "Come on, honey," and whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Beetlejuice made that. Yeah, Beetlejuice built that. Right.
Right. Exactly. So it's just interesting that wasn't even in this movie. It just kind of tells me that in a way, while Tim Burton wasn't shielding children from witchcraft and rituals, he was absolutely shielding them from this idea that it was okay to prioritize them in a sense where it's unhealthy.
You know, I'm with you, and I'm buying I'm buying it. I'm buying that this could have been like a real message that, yeah, this is not cool. This has never been cool. And the real life ramifications of not being cool have altered this film. You know what I mean? I'm changing up everything. You know what I mean? I have to let everyone know this is not cool, and we're going to parade this character's actual corpse through the movie to make this point. My only thing is that That is one expensive message.
Hey, it's Tim fucking Burton.
I it's
I
Tim
think he
fucking
got it.
Burt. I
But you're
think we
absolutely
got
right.
it.
Hey, by the way, executive producer Brad Pitt. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
What
Yeah, he's got
interesting.
EP rights. Uh huh.
Interesting. And Brad
Uh
Pitt's
huh.
having as you said earlier, is having a little bit of a time right now too. You know what I mean? Jeez Louise. Yeesh. Oh man, this
Lots of
movie
criminals
is
in this movie.
Beetlejuice is like he's like the Pope compared to some of these other people.
For
Jeez,
sure. Jeez.
man. Final verdict. This movie, and I love this conversation. I absolutely loved this conversation of just what is this movie? Who is it for? Right? Is it for the children? We're going to go see this movie. Oh, Beetlejuice, but kids don't know who Beetlejuice are. Is it for the older adults like ourselves who grew up with Beetlejuice? This is pure nostalgia fuel. Is Astrid the new face of Beetlejuice? You know what I mean? Like, who is this movie for? And I think that's my final real question to you: is do you feel that this story was told to a particular audience, a story of mourning, a story of acceptance, a story, you know what I mean, a story of just moving on, maybe in death or in life, moving on. Do you think that it really got its point across? And do you think that this will be a resurgence for Beetlejuice? Do you think, because the way this movie ended, we didn't even talk about the ending, which was so jarring to me. I didn't. It left me with a bad taste in my mouth, if I could say so myself. And the ending was they kill, they dispose of Beetlejuice. They get Astrid back. Everybody's good to go, and they have this strange time jump where it's like Lydia's like, I'm gonna live my life with the people I love. And it's like, okay, and I'm thinking, okay, they went to go do the things they were gonna do with their father. And then she sees a boy just like Dracula. I'm like, well, that's weird. And then they get married. And I'm like, that's weirder. And then she's
Astrid,
having a
Astrid and
kid.
the boy.
Astrid.
Yeah,
Astrid and the boy.
yeah.
Astrid meets a boy. That Astrid gets married. And it's just like this time jump that keeps going. And then Astrid's having a kid. What is happening? And then in this crazy the fly, it's alive moment, the baby burst out in blood and pus, and it's the joke Beetlejuice baby from the beginning, from the middle of the movie, and it's climbing up walls and shit. I'm like, I'm so tight. I'm like, what is actually happening? Oh, it's a bad dream. But then Beetlejuice is next to her. Man, I just had a bad dream. And then she wakes up out of that bad dream. And I'm like, is this the ending of the series? Because what it does, it doesn't let you know what part was a dream, what part of the dream was real, and what part of the dream was a dream. Because that time jump could have happened, and the only nightmare part was the baby, or it all was a dream, and this was the next day. It very smartly keeps it wide open. You know what I mean? To
Right.
what's going on, and that just irritated me because it stole an idea I used to have for a movie when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and it stole my idea of having a happy ending and then like wackiness ensues at the very end and it just goes off. So, what is your feelings about the ending and just my general question? Who did this land for? You think?
Um, I think the audience is broad. I don't think it's tailored to children. I don't think it's tailored towards adults. It has like a soul or an inside out like vibe to it, and that like it's as silly as it is. It has this um weird way, like you said, it's a lot of grief, a lot of acceptance. And in the past 4 years, especially, we've gone through a lot of heartache, a lot of loss, a lot of grief, and had to eventually come to terms with acceptance. Um, so I think the audience is broad in that like children have experienced loss just as many as adults have in this day and age now. So I think the movie is made for whoever's willing to accept what comes with it.
Accept
Um,
acceptance. Yeah.
there you go. Like, yeah, for sure. And again, and accept it at surface level that it's silly and it's cringy and whatever Gen Alpha or Gen Z wants to call it. I don't think it's for them specifically. I'll be honest, because like you said, they don't know who Beetlejuice really is. If they saw the movie in the '80s, I can imagine. I can imagine their sentiment towards a character like him, and why it'd be a turnoff, and why it wouldn't be something they'd want to watch. So in that sense, I think the movie is made for our age. For some reason, this summer has been the age of the 40-year-old. So let's go.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I do think I do think on overall the audience is broad. It was a Tim Burton Disney movie,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know.
I
So
feel it.
like verdict wise, I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna give it. I can tell you that um I really enjoyed Willem Dafoe's character in it.
Yeah.
Him he was kind of a big nothing burger, but I liked the way it ended. I loved the MacArthur Park scene during the wedding.
That
I
song's
really
been
do.
stuck
I
in my
love
head.
that they did that whole thing.
That
I
song's
was
been
all
stuck
in
in
for
my
that. I was
head.
like, you know what? I don't care. This is cool. Um, all of them singing together, all of them like dancing and doing the thing, and at the same time, their faces were like, "What the hell?"
What
Because
the hell? What
because
am I
he's
doing?
possessing them.
Yeah, hundred
It's so
percent.
awesome. It was so cool. Um, like I said, I love Willem Dafoe's character in it. I did not like the fact that both of the villains, the demon boy and his ex-wife, died instantly. Like
Yeah, they just got him
they
up
were
out
in
of
the
there.
movie, and then boom, she's dead. And then they were in the movie, and then boom, he goes to hell. Like, oh, that's it, huh? All right,
Yep. No
bye
catharsis for
guys.
them. They
Yeah.
were just
So
evil for the sake of being evil.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Yeah, I didn't like that so much. Like you said, not a huge fan of the Soul Train. Loved the intro of the movie. It was so reminiscent of the first. I think they did a really well. They did well done with that when the contrast between the model homes and then the real home, and like them going back and forth and you not really knowing what's what. Reminded me of Hereditary. I
Yep.
thought that was pretty cool. Um, and yeah, the fact that the Maylands weren't there, not a big fan of. But I did enjoy the movie. I especially especially the fact that Tim Burton knew the controversy when it came to putting in this elephant of the room character of Charles Dietz, and he did it anyway. I thought that took balls. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was done in such a silly, fun way. Um, I think a lot of the plot could have been a little bit stronger, a little bit better, but I think like with most movies that bring in nostalgia and bring sequel and combine the two, they just throw everything in and then it just kind of works out the way it works out. Kind of used to that now at this point. So I don't know. What are we doing? 1 to 5 sandworms?
One
Oh,
of
the sandworms. I love the fact that they didn't change the sandworms. They looked exactly the same as they
yeah,
did in the first one.
very good.
I
Yeah, one
loved it.
yeah,
No AI, no advanced technology, just claymation. That's what it looked
claymation.
like to me. I loved it.
Yeah. So before I jump in, I was from 0 to 5 sandworms. What would you rate this movie?
0 to 5 sandworms. I'm going to get it 3.5 sandworms and cut that bad boy right in half.
Ooh, let's go. And it grows another sandworm. You gotta love it. Okay. Okay. Well, there's so much to talk about. So I loved the sense of wonder that Tim Burton brings to a film. I mentioned it earlier. The sound design, the practical effects, the practical claymation. Like you said, the sandworm just being OG sandworm in a claymation. There's not CGI. It's not industrial lights and magic. It's someone doing a stop motion. I love
Right.
the intro scene, like you said, with rolling through the town. You know what I mean? I love the explanation of Charles Dietz's death in claymation. Total break of what I expected from that film to be in the way they illustrated that. I liked Astrid's character as kind of like the new blood. I really enjoyed Astrid as a addition. I would love to see her in something else tied to this film. Um, I loved the afterlife. I love how they built upon the afterlife. How they're they have their own police station and they have their own way stations. And as much as I don't like the Soul Train, I like the idea of the Soul Train. You know what I mean? Uh, William Dafoe was like, gotta keep it real. You know what I mean? You just gotta keep it real. I love him. It looked like he was having a real good time in this movie, and it's always good to see actors look like they're having a good time. You know what I mean? He really was having fun. Catherine O'Hara stole the movie for me. I don't just me personally. I thought she was hilarious. I thought she really went all out in this role, and it was fun to see her story end. I didn't expect her to die and then be like, and what scariest part to me is that I'm not dead. Why am I here? There's something wrong. The panic of that moment made me uncomfortable in a good way. It was like, oh, I don't like that. It hit me in my chest a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm dead. There's nothing I can do. There's no talking your
The
way
thing
out of
is,
it.
I don't even know if she cared so much that she was dead. It's that she was uncomfortable
Yeah, her
because she's Delia.
uncomfortability because she's Delia and it's something that's not going with her plan. No, this wasn't my
Right.
plan. I paid for
Right.
those defamed asps, and I got ripped off. No, that's not cool. Who can I talk to? She tried to Karen her way out of it. And
Yeah,
it's
she was
like
trying to Karen
that.
out. Yeah.
It was like, oh, that worked for you up there, didn't it? And, it's just like the desperation of that scene choked me up a little bit. And also like the MacArthur Park ending. I wasn't with it when it first started, and when I realized they're doing the whole song, I just fell right into it. I loved it. I went from not liking it to loving
Same.
it. Like you said, you just kind of give up and be like, "All right, man, here you go. All right, I'm having a good time. We're all we're
You
all
win,
having
Mr. Burton.
you and Mr. Burton. I was gonna be a big grump about it. You made me smile. I can't fight that. Um, all that said, all my thoughts about the father character, and like you said, them parading him through the film, and kind of like you said, taking that elephant in the room and slapping you right in the face with it, ballsy to guts. Do I think do I think it demanded as much time to that character? No, I don't think it demanded that much time to that character. Could have been a throwaway line, but he was making a point, and I guess his point was, no, we don't tolerate this, and I'm going to drag this dead body through the film just so you know we don't tolerate this. You know what I mean? It's such a strange, such a you know, such a strange. Uh, what do the kids say? It's like just a swag to it. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna drag you through the mud as professionally and as expensive as possible. You know what I mean? And we're gonna make that point.
Pretty
That being,
base.
it's pretty base. That's what I'm saying. It's pretty base. With that,
uh,
0 to 5 sandworms. I'm gonna give it. I don't want to steal your score, but I'm kind of leaning towards a 3.52. It's not a 4.0. It's not a B. But it's not so bad because I enjoyed it. Would I watch this again? I don't know. Maybe it was fun. I watched Beetlejuice this morning in preparation for the pod and was like, it would be nice to kind of back to back these films. You know what I mean? But I think I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, just because I didn't like the. There's certain things I really didn't like. I didn't like the modern music. I didn't like the cell phone scene where he was making his point about cell phones. Everybody had their cell phones pointing at Beetlejuice, and everybody got sucked into the cell phone because that's what we do. We get sucked into our cell phones. You know what I mean? It's just like I wish it
I
felt
actually kind
more.
of like that.
You know,
I did kind of like that actually. I forgot about that scene, but I did like that. Oh shit, that's Black Mirror. That's cool.
yeah,
Good job,
we
Tim
all get
Burton.
sucked
Yeah, I
into
thought
our
it was
cell
cool.
phones. It's funny.
Yeah.
We were like, we're going to fight about this one, and it's funny that we have differentiating views on how this film was, what it was trying to say, but we're both right. And I think that's super. That's a testament, I guess, to a good message. Is that multiple different? It could be seen in multiple different ways. You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
It still have basis. So you said a 3.5. I said a 3. Beetlejuice. I know we're going to see you again because they have to make Beetlejuice. It's just the marketing's too good to pass up. Just and we're going to have this conversation again. In the future.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
Toots, where can we find you?
You can find me on the Instagram at thelovehub_LA. That's THELUVHUB_LA. Hit me up, DM me for anything that you want to promote for yourselves, your new podcast, your new song, your new LP, your new artwork, anything that involves, especially if you're local in Los Angeles, any new parties that are happening, anything that you want people to show up to your events. Let's go, let's go. Shout out Gemwork Fest that happened this past weekend. It was amazing. Shout out Brother Moz. Shout out Tech. Shout out Click. Oh my gosh, you guys, that was so much fun. Thank you guys for everything. Mr. Mike G, thank you for today.
You are a part of the Nerdiverse, and we thank you for all your due diligence, and especially in your works that you're doing now, being able to promote these smaller acts, these bigger acts, whoever would like to, join and be able to put their business front forward. You're doing the Lort's work, Lort, Lort. You're doing the Lort's work. Sorry. Um, for the MOTN podcast, what's coming up? We have MOTN Live today, technically. And
Today.
I don't
Oh,
want
I'm
to
so
date the
excited.
podcast, but today,
I
for
know.
this is going to be seen in the future, so it really doesn't matter. This is a future episode, but we have
The
MOTN Live,
future.
the future. We have MOTN Live, which is going to be every Friday, which we're going to be doing, where we chew the fat, no reviews, no real docket, just us just hanging out with you. So if you'd like to join, we're going to be on YouTube, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, every single day. Just hop in the chat, say hi, ask us a question. We're going to be chilling, drinking beverages, hanging out for an hour. So catch us for that hour. Um, Thank you everybody for your support with MLT and lore Sith Holocron. So that was a good, exciting episode. Our next lore voted by you, the fans, is going to be the lament configuration. It's going to be the box. So we're going to be talking about the box next. So very excited for
It's
that.
just a puzzle box.
It's just a puzzle box. And lastly, if you like this content, if you want to hear more from me, hear more from Tootie, we have so many episodes on our website, mastersofthenerdiversecast.com, where you can see all of our past episodes. They're on audio settings, so you're going to be able to hear them while you're working, as well as hear this on Spotify, on YouTube, on SoundCloud. In the wind with Mufasa, R.I.P. James Earl Jones, R.I.P. James Earl Jones. And that'll do it for us today. I've been, of course, your host, Mike G. And as I always love to send off our reviews, say it with me, Tootie. Look
Look
towards
towards the
the
skies.
skies. Look
Look
towards
towards the
the
skis.
skis.
That was way off.
I don't care. It ruled. It ruled.